Screw it. We're doing it live. We're going live early. Hello, everybody. I see you're already jacked up in the kick room, so we're gonna go ahead and get it started a couple minutes early. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Pete Robertucci. I write post-apocalyptic fiction books, and if you haven't bought them, you should read them because they're freaking awesome. We're going to do something a little different tonight. Of course, we've got the Discord channel popping off, so if you want to ask a question live, get on Discord. It'll be scrolling across the screen here in a little bit. But we're going to do things a little bit different tonight, and what we're going to do is we're actually going to bring our guest in early for the current events. And you say, why, Pete? Why are you changing things up on us? We don't like changing things up. Because we were doing pre-production stuff, and I like this cat. I mean, me and him got a lot in common. I think he's got a lot to add to the current events because we both kind of follow the same stuff. So is that all right with you guys? Tell me in the comments. Should I bring in our guest early and have him talk about current events? What do you think?
Oh, yeah, Pete.
Oh, well, forget it. Our guest says we're in. We're doing it live. We're doing it live. So I'll introduce Mr. Donnie Dunn. Donnie's a good friend of mine. We met in St. Petersburg at a writers' conference, and I'm going to tell you a funny story, guys. I started reading Weatherman's book. Let's go to this right here real quick. I started reading Chris Weatherman's book, and he had a character in there. His name was Dalton. And Dalton, when I met Donnie in St. Petersburg, and I remembered Chris's Dalton character, I would have 100% sold my soul and says, Donnie Dunn is Dalton in Chris's books. Well, we know that that's not the case, but I don't care. Every time I read or listen to Chris's books, this is Dalton right here. So Russ will be careful with Donnie, so don't worry. I'm just reading comments as we go, Donnie, so don't be alarmed. But again, we've got let me pull back over to here. We're up to 90-something followers. I appreciate you guys. No subscribers yet. There will be a time in the future when the after show will be for only subscribers, but that's not anytime soon. So you guys don't worry about that. So Will's in the house, it looks like. So we're going to pop off. Donnie, you want to stick around? You want to do some current events with me? What do you think, huh?
I'm all yours, brother.
Okay, guys, if you can hear and see everything all right, tell me in the chat because you know how I am. I'm a one-man show here and got Tiny Tooch in the background moderating you bunch of fools. So if you get out of line, she will kick you. Just so you know. So let's go in here. So
Does that cost extra?
What's that, Donnie?
That costs extra?
Stay away from Uncle Donnie, baby girl. I told you. Let's talk about some current events. What do you say, Donnie? Let's talk about the elephant in the room right now. Colorado has kicked Trump off the ballot. So what's funny to me is they're citing Article 14, saying he's basically an insurrectionist and he can't hold public office. The problem, Donnie, is that Trump has never been convicted of insurrection, has he? Have you heard of him being convicted of insurrection?
He's not. And he didn't cause the insurrection. People on the ground caused, and it wasn't an insurrection. It was a bunch of pissed off people that went in, and I don't agree with what they did. The office was sacred, but they went in and kind of all hell broke loose to a point, but they were invited in. There was people instigating them.
Yeah, and
there's so much evidence.
Yeah, we're getting more and more video coming out showing what actually happened during that day, and that's why the Dems are trying to stem that video release. Just so you guys know. So what's the likely outcome? Yeah, likely outcome is going to be overturned by the Supreme Court, even though the Dems are calling for Justice Clarence Thomas to recuse himself. Now, let me tell you how mentally ill these liberals are. First of all, you have 3 Democratic Supreme Court justices in Colorado who used their political clout and their political bias to go ahead and say Trump shouldn't be on the ballot, yet they're going to accuse Justice Clarence Thomas for political bias in making their decision in the Supreme Court. How crazy is that? That's insane to me that somebody would actually fall for that. But you know what? 49% of the country will fall for it, Donnie, won't they?
Well, there's always useful idiots, but they've been trying to get Clarence Thomas since the 90s. I mean, they've pulled out all the stops. And he's a gentleman and a scholar and a great Supreme Court justice. Listen, it's they keep saying if Trump gets elected, it's going to be a dictatorship. Well, the reality is they have the dictatorship.
And the funny thing is, and people don't realize this, they are doing everything they're blaming the right on doing. They're blaming the right on doing stuff, but in actuality, they're the ones doing it. It's insane to me. I don't understand it, but that is the world we live in today. So that's the way it works. So their likely motives for doing that, guys, is their continuing effort to politicize the judicial system. And that's always been a goal of the Democrats, and that's also a goal for anybody who's backed by Mr. George Soros. If you're not familiar with George Soros, you might want to read up on him a little bit because he's a piece of garbage. But that's just my opinion, and you know how I am. I give my opinion quite frequently.
They're not going to let Trump win the election somehow or some way.
Yeah.
Short of assassinating. I mean, they're insane, and
it's right.
They don't want to give up the true power.
It's the most criminal thing I've ever seen in my life. But whatever, we'll see how it plays out. But good news is we're ready for anything that comes down our path, so we're good to go there. So let's go back.
Did you see the Candace Owen video on Black Lives Matter?
I did see that. And yeah, we'll maybe next podcast I'll put that up for you guys. Madman Wayne's in the house. Good to see you, Mr. Wayne. So that's all I got to say about Trump. That's going to play out in the court system. It's a stalling tactic because, as we know, Colorado prints their ballots up on January 4th, and the Supreme Court of the United States has already said they are not going to expedite the hearing to fight this yet. So more than likely, he will not be in the preliminaries for this the Colorado, but it doesn't matter because he will be in the general election if anybody has anything to say about it. So that's all I got to say about Trump. I'm not a huge fan of him, but I am a huge fan of his policies. So that's that. Anybody got anything to say? And guys, if you got questions, like I said, Little Tooch is in the background, and she's making notes of all the questions, and we'll go through that after Mr. Donnie Dunn's interview. All right, let's talk about some international stuff, Donnie. Attacks on U.S. troops continue under this weak leadership by President Biden. U.S. forces have been attacked 151 times in Iraq and Syria since this Biden administration took office, and more than 100 times since October. Coincidence? I don't think so. Terrorists, Iranian-backed terrorists, are using drones, rockets, mortars, and even close-range ballistic missiles, and we are doing zero about it. Since December 7th, the Pentagon said these attacks resulted in 66 U.S. troop injuries. And even though some of these injuries, this kills me, even though some of these injuries are considered traumatic brain injuries, this is a quote from the Pentagon, guys. This is a quote. He says, they say, all the injuries are non-serious. Non-serious. So we have troops out there with...
Unless you're the person injured.
Yeah, unless you're the person injured or the person whose family now you have to provide for. If you have a TBI, it's no big deal. It's non-serious, right? So it's crazy, and this is a sign of a weakness from this administration, and that's going to continue to go on. So what does that mean? So the likely outcome in Iraq and Syria, it's going to continue on until we do something about it. But from a broader spectrum, from a bigger spectrum, we're already starting to see, because these terrorists now are emboldened by our weakness, we're already starting to see attacks in Europe. Okay, we're already starting to see attacks in other places. And it won't be long, guys. It will not be long until they are on our shores. They're already coming across our southern border. It's only a matter of time before we see these type of attacks on our shores. And who's going to be to blame? Our weak...
Let's talk about...
Go ahead, Donnie.
When Trump took office, he inherited the ISIS problem from the very weak Obama administration. And basically, they had a caliphate set up in the Middle East in their area. And Trump basically took the safety off, sent in the Rangers, sent in the Green Berets, sent in special air units, and they annihilated ISIS and drove them back, which was really the biggest existential threat. They talk about global warming. That was a threat to safety and peace in the whole world, and Trump demolished them. It was something he inherited. We need to do that now, but this incredibly weak leadership that we have is just not going to do it.
Yeah, we need to do that now, and we need someone that understands the Middle East. They only know power. Okay, I've told this story before, but when Trump was in office and he was on a Zoom call with the Taliban guy, he showed him a picture of his house. and he says, listen to me. He goes, if one of my troops is hurt on my watch, well, the guy, the terrorist, the Taliban guy says, Mr. Excellence, why are you showing me a picture of my house? He goes, if one of my troops is hurt while I'm in office, I want you to know that I'm turning this into dust. And the only thing the Taliban guy said to him was, yes, Mr. Excellence, I understand. And we never lost or even had a fire incident on a U.S. troop since that day. So listen, the moral of the story, the Middle East only knows strength, and they sense weakness. As soon as they sense weakness, they're going to attack us. That's their plan all
Don't know
along.
strength.
Say again?
Strength.
Yeah.
Don't know strength.
No. So that's what we're looking at as far as our U.S. troop and our weak-ass administration. And I apologize. I just say what's on my mind, guys. So, and I think that's what you guys appreciate. I think that's what you guys appreciate about me. So I'm gonna go with that. So let's talk about. We'll stay in the Middle East, and we'll talk about the Houthis that are continuing attacks on shipping vessels in the Red Sea. You guys heard about that? So yeah, the Houthis are in Yemen, and they're if I'm not mistaken, they're a Sunni offlet of Islamic extremist. And what they're doing is they're basically trying to strangle all shipping through the Red Sea into the Suez Canal. What's that mean for us? I'll tell you what that means first, but let's look at a timeline of what they've done and our lack of action. November 19th, they seized a cargo ship belonging to the United Kingdom. They still have that cargo ship, by the way. It's a tourist attraction in the Red Sea, if you want to know, for Yemen people. December 3rd, they targeted 2 Israeli ships near the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, which they actually did not seize those, but they did target them. December 12th, they attacked a Norwegian ship that they claimed was heading for Israel. It was not heading for Israel. It had normal stuff that was just trying to make passage through the canal. December 15th, 2 missile attacks on cargo ships that they claimed were heading to Israel. They were not heading to Israel. On December 16th, CENTCOM reported shooting down 14 UAVs that were either going to Israel or were actually targeting U.S. vessels in the region. So what's that mean? So our lack of action are emboldening these Yemenis, these Houthis. But let's talk about the broader picture when it gets to this. In response, Maersk, the world's largest second container shipping company, is refusing to ship through the Red Sea. What's that going to mean for us? That means they have to go all the way below the Horn of Africa, using all that extra fuel, paying all those sailors, feeding all those sailors. So what do you think is going to happen? You're going to see an increased cost in your entire commodity spectrum. Everything you buy, you're going to have an increased cost, if it even makes it there. So that's what we're dealing with there. And again, I don't want to sound like I'm beating the drum over and over again, but that's because of our weak-ass administration. Oh, you got any comments on the Houthis there, Donnie?
Kill them all, let God sort them out.
Right. Exactly.
No, I do. So yeah, every major shipping company, except for one, has temporarily suspended shipments to that particular strait, which is one of the top 5 or 6 most sailed straits for commerce in the world, and it's absolutely going to have an effect on the economy. Again, we've got ships being reactionary and firing, standard missiles or whatever, shooting down drones, shooting down these short-range ballistic missiles that they have, and rockets. Now they're trying to form a coalition with Japanese and various. I know Britain and France are going to send vessels there. I think even China's got some stuff over there, but it's got to be stopped, and we have to be offensive on that.
Well,
but they're afraid of making a larger confrontation.
Well, and I can tell you that I was watching news conferences today, and the Israelis are tired of it, and they are setting up a front to go ahead and destroy the Houthis. Just so you're aware, there is no reason why. And listen, these Israelis are able to do it. They're going to drop back from the Gaza, have a ceasefire, and take out these Houthis, because here, that's one of their major shipping lanes. It's a matter of time. So that will and look, he said, well, we don't want to broaden the war, Donnie. We don't want to broaden the war. It's already broadened. All right.
I do.
I do. Let's get it on. It's going to happen. Let's just get it on while we're young enough to do something about it. That's what I say. All right. Enough of the Houthis. Okay, let's go. Rat bastards. Let's talk about, Donnie, what do you think about the United Nations? What do you think about the UN? Tell me, I always like to get other people's opinion on the UN.
You're just wonderful. Yeah, no bigger waste of resources, money, finance in the world than this puppet United Nations, which is a joke. It's an absolute joke. I
Yeah.
understand why it was founded after World War II. The reasoning was noble, but the actions of the United Nations it's just preposterous. It's a paper tiger, paper organization that has no real pull.
Yeah, so they went on they went on with their anti-Semitic rhetoric from the very beginning, and this is not from the very beginning of October. They've been anti-Semitic for a very, very long time, but their anti-Semitic rhetoric is now turning into UN resolutions, Donnie. So they've actually tried to pass two resolutions, ES 1021, which called for an immediate ceasefire and condemned all violence aimed at Palestine and Israeli civilians, which was kind of nice that they did that. However, they refused to put the verbiage in there that Palestine should discontinue any rocket attacks specifically aimed at Israeli targets. And when I say targets, that's civilians. These are dumb missiles. These are dumb bombs. These are mortars. They're not guided. They are strictly hitting civilians. They refused to condemn that. So that resolution failed. So let's see what happens. So forward a couple of days, they tried to pass ES 1022, which called for yet another ceasefire and an immediate unconditional hostage release. That didn't gain the required votes, 2/3 votes required to pass. Why was that? Because the United States government simply asked for them to condemn what happened on October 7th. And that was enough to say, we're not going to pass. Who in their right mind would not condemn, regardless of what side you're on, who would not condemn what happened on? That's like not condemning what happened on 9/11. Okay, who in their right mind wouldn't condemn that? But it failed. But since I wrote this brief, Donnie, the UN passed a resolution for an Israeli ceasefire in which the U.S. abstained from voting, which it passed. So the U.S., unprecedented for the most part, very rarely do we ever abstain from voting, but we did this, and that further now shows a sign of weakness for this crappy administration that we have on our hands.
We better be careful, or the UN's going to send a strongly worded letter to Israel, and that's going to shake them.
Look, I'm going to tell you right now what they should tell them. Don't. That's the dumbest thing. What? Don't broaden the war. Don't. That was the strongest words they could put out. Don't. No, Trump, on the other hand, would say, listen, if you broaden this world at all, I will turn your whole entire city into dust. Your country will no longer exist. And then that would get a reaction out of it. But simply to say, don't. Come on, give me a break.
All these things happened. Funny thing, during Trump's administration, look, I don't like a lot of the shit the guy says. I mean, I kind of laugh. I wouldn't say I don't like it. I cringe at it because I know how the world reacts. To me personally, I think it's hilarious because I'd say worse. But you notice when he was in office, none of this shit went down.
No.
I mean, he went to North Korea and stepped into North Korea to meet the leader of it. That's who Trump was, because he was unpredictable and he was a son of a bitch, just like some of our great leaders were in history. And all this happened because they knew Biden was weak. They knew he was inept. They knew his administration was weak. You see it clear as a bell. All hell broke loose when he got out of office after his election was stolen.
Yeah, and they pounce because that's what they know. That's what these Middle Eastern, these Arab countries know, and we're falling right into the hands of it. And then don't even get me started about the Ukrainian stuff, because we talked about that last week, and that's a whole nother ball of wax. So, listen, I told you guys the story about Donnie and how I thought he was Dalton, and that's kind of leads me into a segue for our next commercial, our first commercial, actually. And you guys know this, and you've seen this before. This is our friend.
Summer's Eve?
This is our, what's that?
Summer's Eve?
Summer's, no, yeah. So, listen, if they would sponsor me, I would put them on. But our good friend Chris Weatherman, as we all know, by Angry American, put out finally his book 12. So let's pay homage to him and run through a little commercial for him. Donnie, your mic's live, by the way, through this commercial. So,
for those of you who may not have heard of the survivalist series. The basic premise of it is a post-EMP. The main character, Morgan Carter, is 250 miles from home in the state of Florida when this happens. And the first book is just about him trying to get home. But as we all know, and most of us don't really think about, that's just the beginning. You know, that's why his whole route home is only one book. The rest of the books are trying to deal with this new world, and where we're at now, number 12 in the series, Exploring Home, we're starting the rebuilding of that world. And it's going to look a lot different than what it looked like when we started. I think in a better way. That's the basic premise of it. And, you know, and Morgan, our guy, he meets a lot of interesting characters along the way. He makes some great friends. A lot of bad stuff happens to him, too. But you just got to deal with it, you know. Ain't dead, can't quit. If you haven't heard of the Survival series, check it out today. Links below. You can get it on Amazon. It's on Audible, e-readers, all your stuff. Check it out. I think you guys will like it.
Well, there you go. After you buy all my books, buy Mr. Angry American's books. Look, he writes about the same pace as I do, so by the time I'm done with mine, you should be done reading his. No, you guys read fast. So anyway, it doesn't matter. Buy his books. He's a good guy, and he's helped me out a lot. Mr. Dunn, I didn't give you a proper introduction. So Mr. Donnie Dunn. So I met you, I was telling everybody, I met you in St. Petersburg. And Donnie was a unique character when I first met him. He rolls up in a kilt. I'm pretty sure he wasn't wearing any underwear. He had this big... Donnie, you have that knife? Do you happen to have that knife you carry around with you?
Oh, I carry a lot of knives.
Well, that big hatchet-looking...
This is the one that I designed with Alan Kay called the Dalton.
Yeah, so he's carrying that around with him at the resort. He's in a kilt. We're all getting happy, and that was the first time I ever met Mr. Donnie Dunn. And I like I was telling him earlier, I 100% thought he was Dalton in Angry American's books. So Donnie, we're glad to have you here, young man. It's good to see you again. We need to hang out more. It's good to see your beautiful face.
You know, I have been exfoliating and whatnot. It's really working.
So, Donnie, I had no idea that you were into preparedness. I mean, I knew you were kind of into the genre of the reading and stuff like that. But I had no idea you were until I came across a video you did with a tactical rifleman that you were into preparedness. So a couple quick questions for you. How long have you been into preparedness, and what originally got you started, young man?
Even though I'm older than you, but thank you. I appreciate that.
All right.
So I'm born and raised in Kentucky, and lived in Florida for a long time. I've been a hunter and a fisherman and an outdoorsman. You know, we've been in Canada hunting in various different states, my whole life. So I've always thought the idea of preparedness was logical. Then, probably 20 some years ago, I just had a feeling, and I think we have all probably got that similar feeling. The hairs on the back of our neck, when I used to have hair anyways. And I really kind of dove into preparedness, probably too much head first. I did like most people did, because I was a gun guy. I was a lifelong shooter. I did the whole tactical thing, went out and bought a bunch of guns and blah, blah, blah. And then I met some people through some different groups that I joined that really showed me
Oh, it's not
that,
there you go.
not to negate firearms, but they're just a tiny piece to be able to protect what you have. Training, of course. And I started to learn about things like shelter and food, not bushcraft. And I've got a lot of bushcraft skills, and those are great if you're stuck in an airplane crash in Alaska. But I'm talking about real preparedness, and really the thing that kind of all funneled down, being the hardest to find resource in any crisis is food. And I started really listening to people that were a lot smarter than me, studying, reading. I even hooked up with the Mormons, because nobody knows more about that than them. Really a picture, because I do read a lot. Obviously, that's how we met. I do a lot of Audible, let's put it that way. And one of the common denominators is most crises throughout history have been evolved around food. Once you survive the initial crisis or whatever happens, really having food is used as a weapon. Food is used for power. In Somalia in '93, the whole Black Hawk Down thing was from the gang members there taking the food that the UN was bringing and using it for power. So I really dove headfirst into how to store food efficiently, sustainably, and also affordably.
So, and that, Donnie, sometimes I get asked because apparently when you write a book about preparedness, people think you're an expert at it. So sometimes I get asked to kind of critique mutual assistance groups or critique different groups. And the first thing I always do is look at their food supply. But guess what? The first thing they always want to show me. Guess what they want to show me the first? Yeah, they want to show me how many guns they have and how many bullets they have. And I tell them,
I'm going to go take whatever I
yeah,
need.
exactly. I love when they say that. But what I tell them, and I always look at it from an aspect is how would me and my group come and take your group over? So these guys with 20,000 rounds of ammunition, but a week's worth of food, I go, we'll just surround your place and starve you to death. And then I have your 20 rounds of ammunition. It's no big deal. And my guys are better trained than yours. And we're just going to, but that's the thing. And food, and that's what I always tell everybody. Water, food, shelter, security. Water, food, shelter. In that order, that's how you should be preparing for. So it's just amazing to me that how many people bypass that. And I get it. It's not sexy. It's not as sexy as the $1,500 AR. But look, you're going 3 weeks without food, and you're in a bad way, a bad way. So definitely.
You can attest to this, and probably a lot of people listening here. People tend to romanticize apocalyptic events. They read books, they see movies on it, they try to envision themselves all, road warriored out, slaying zombies or killing people. When you start studying and reading books like On Combat or On Killing by Grossman, various other books, or as in my case, I'm very good friends with several Green Berets and Rangers that have killed more people than mosquitoes. They don't want to kill more people. They don't want to have to kill people. If I could go the rest of my life and not hurt a human being, I would be a happy person. They don't understand. And the reality is, most people aren't in shape enough to fight or have the training to fight or probably piss themselves when they get shot at, right? So a firearm, last resort in any situation. As a firearms instructor like you, that's what I teach, and I'm sure it's what you teach. Firearms are important. That's a huge part of my life since I was 7. But you have to think about the real day in, day out, hours and hours and days of silence and quiet and suffering. Food keeps you healthy. You have the right food supply will allow you to trade and barter, but really healthy, keeping your body going, your immune system going, getting the proper amount of nutrition. Because you're in a post-apocalyptic situation, the reality is, using history as our guide, that food is sustainability is what matters. Now, food, you can only store so much food. If it's a long-term crisis, more than 2 years, you're going to have to transition into growing your own food and finding other sources. But water, of course, water is the most important. We can only live 3 days. I wouldn't want to go 3 days without water. But in an area like Florida or most areas, water is accessible and there's ways to get and process and have clean water to drink. However, food, not so much. Grocery stores will empty. 7-Elevens, convenience stores will empty. Haji Marts. Having your own supply of food, and I mean in bulk. I don't mean a month's worth of food. Average American's 3 days, yada, yada, yada. I'm talking about years of food storage. And I worked really hard and even started a company years ago, which kind of defunct because people wanted to do their own thing. So now I just teach it. But having proper and the right kind of food to sustain yourself, preferably staged at multiple locations, is really the most important part of preparedness. Drop the mic, hands down, in the story.
And and that's what I tell people because I get a few excuses. First of all, we'll address these here in a little bit. First of all, I can't afford to stockpile, and then the other thing is I don't have enough room to stockpile. Well, we're going to talk about both ways, but let me address the not enough room first. If you're gonna stockpile for 3 weeks, okay, look under your bed. Tell me what's there. Okay, get it out. Put food there. If you're gonna stockpile, if you're gonna stockpile for a long term. Guys, I've preached and preached and preached multiple times about having a mutual assistance group. Finding a group of people, a tribe, to have one location where you can stockpile. I keep very limited amount of food here on my 10 acres. Why? Because I know that in a long-term event, I'm gonna have to bug out to the mag site. It's just going to happen. So where do we need to keep the bulk of our food? At the mag site. Nobody wants to do that. Everybody is so consumed with saying I'm gonna shelter in place. I'm gonna ride it out. It's not gonna happen. You are gonna die. Okay, I don't know any other way to say that. If you think you're going to be a gray man, and if you think you're going to ride this out by yourself, it's not going to happen. No, look, I'm talking about Donnie. I'm talking about a true event. I'm not talking about a hurricane. I'm talking about a long-term, prolonged event. You need a community to help you do this. If for anything else, security, farming, and why not form a group? Listen, if you can't find a group, form your own group. I can't tell you how many doctors, how many lawyers, how many people from professional people have come to me, especially after the coronavirus thing, the COVID thing, and said, "Listen, tell me about these groups you got going on." And it's just going to be for a long-term event. It's the only way you're going to survive. And anybody that thinks they're going to do it any way differently is going to have their house scavenged when they die. So that's just the way it's going to be. So
ask yourself a question: why do you want to survive? You want to survive for the sake of a miserable existence, or do you want to thrive? So that's a real heavy question to ask. But everything sounds romantic in a book. In reality, it sucks. I've been through a couple hurricanes. I've been down to Miami, hurricane areas that were devastated. It sucks. No power, no cooling in Florida, especially. Were you going to play card games? I mean, you have to really understand why you want to survive, your loved ones, and I know that sounds silly, but surviving just for the sake of survival, you want to thrive. You want to be someplace where you, like Pete said, you want to have people that you like. So the time to start a group and meet like-minded people is now. Hang out with them, drink with them, break bread with them, do activities with them. If you don't like them now, you're really not going to like them under stress.
Yeah, and it's funny, Donnie, because the group I'm involved with, one of the groups I'm involved with, we have an open camp every quarter where you can come meet the guys, see if it's a fit for you, and see if they dig you. I mean, because you're right. If you're not going to get together on a weekend outing, then you're not. I have one person in all the years I've been with that group show up, and it just drives me crazy that we can put it in front of everybody, but they're just not seeing it. So anyway,
Hot oil massages and chicken sacrifices are a bit much. So I don't know. I have to gear myself up for that.
Well, you just wear your kilt and you'll be just fine. So listen, Donnie, I get asked this question. And guys, if you have questions for Donnie, put it in the chat. Again, Tiny Tooch is making a note of them, and we'll have a spot there where we can answer some questions. I get asked this question a lot, Donnie. So I'm gonna actually pose it to you and see what your thoughts are. What's the most likely SHTF event that we could foresee in our future while we're alive?
Let me get my crystal ball.
Okay, do it.
I'm kidding. Probably economic collapse. Well, really, cyber attack, economic collapse are the most likely. Cyber attacks. Now, I do have several friends. Obviously can't talk about, as we know, and I shared friends with Chris Weatherman because he has a big reach. And we knew about the COVID lockdowns 2 weeks before they were coming, or even announced or talked about. We've got some pretty good connected people. Their biggest fear right now, and it's been a fear of theirs for a long time, to be honest with you, are terrorist groups infiltrating America, which with an open border with Mexico, not real fucking hard, and using 2 to 3 man teams armed with assault rifles, AK-47s or whatever, attacking multiple locations throughout the U.S. in gun-free zones, shopping malls in California, Chicago, whatever major metropolitan area, a coordinated attack at the same time really paralyzed America, more so than even 9/11. Because do you remember how locked down we were at 9/11? No air flights, no cell phone service for a while. That's their biggest
Let me
fear.
back you up even more and say, remember the DC sniper? Do you remember that guy?
Yeah,
He had that entire the 3-state area locked down, and it was just him and a 14, 15-year-old kid, and he had the entire. So that was one sniper in the D.C. area that had people afraid to go to the grocery store, right?
Can you imagine 10 or 15 two-man teams at shopping malls, concerts, parades, whatever, simultaneously throughout America? The absolute havoc, chaos. I mean, they'd all die,
Yeah.
obviously. They don't need to. Look at Israel. They look what they did to Israel and caused what they did.
Yeah.
How these groups hit us. What do we do? Hit the whole Middle East? It's a real, to me, that's the biggest threat. And of course, cyber attacks, anything to do with the electrical grid, because we're not the same people we were 50, 60, 70 years ago. People without power, without internet, without electricity, are going to be in a bad spot.
Yeah.
And
So what I usually tell people is, regardless of the catalyst, or regardless of the event, maybe a power outage, maybe an EMP, maybe a cyber attack, your biggest threat is civil unrest. Your biggest threat becomes your neighbor. Okay. And why do I say that? Because as you've been preparing your entire existence, while they're going out to the bar, while they're hanging out doing this, spending money on that, and you're stockpiling food, sooner or later they are going to be starving. And if you guys haven't read a book called Survival Theory, I don't remember who the author is, but I'll post it after we leave here. If you haven't read that book, and there's now a Survival Theory and a Survival Theory 2, read that book, because what it talks about is some of the historic events when it came to people starving, and what they actually encountered during those events. So, and that's of course after you buy all of Chris's books. What's that, Donnie?
And even before that book, I'm very familiar with those books. And what I was saying earlier is, all my research, look what Stalin did. Stalin killed millions of people, not with bullets.
Yeah.
That too. With food. Food is power. Imagine how powerful a Ziploc bag full of beans and rice would be. People would trade their Rolexes, their Gucci watches, they would trade whatever just to feed their family in a crisis.
Well,
and you can still go to the bar, you can still go to the mall. I can teach you or help you along the way, show you how to store substantial amounts of food. I mean, for $5,000 or less, substantially less, $5,000 you could feed a family of 5 for 2 years or more. Oh, think about that. And
yeah,
that's
especially if you're packaging it yourself. I know people like to do these freeze dried meals and stuff like that. But you got to understand that those are not the best for you, and the caloric intake is terrible. So and did you? I was watching a story yesterday about one of the hostages in Gaza. And let's talk about hunger. So what he did while he was down in these tunnels, because he was starving, they were starving them, they would give him three sheets of toilet paper a day. What he was doing was taking the moisture off the walls of the tunnel, because they were probably 30 meters underground, so it was condensating, and he was eating the toilet paper. Okay, that's the desperate acts that people are going through. Okay, so and that's recent. That happened within weeks. Okay, so
Charmin tastes the best, by the way.
Yeah, but you can't have the scented stuff, and those dude wipes are terrible too. So don't ever eat those. Okay, so long and short, I think civil unrest, regardless of what happens or what the catalyst is, will be your biggest threat. And I spoke on another podcast, or it was a YouTube video on continuity of government. Within 3 weeks of a major event, continuity of government ceases to exist. What does that mean? That means 911 doesn't come to you. That means the electric's not on. That means your pump stations for your sewer is not on. Continuity of government ceases to exist within 3 weeks. And
right.
that is not my words. That comes from the EMP Congressional Commission. Okay, so I'm not making this stuff up. It's actually in the commission report. Go read it. I'll replay that video during the week on Kick, so you guys might get a notification of that. All right, Mr. Donnie. So I didn't realize you were a food guru, like I said, until you were going through. I was going through some YouTube channels and saw that Tactical Rifleman, you guys were doing a big bulk food storage thing, which I found really interesting. But my question to you is, how do you calculate how much food you need? Now, look, I understand some people can store 2 or 3 tons of food, but it just might not be feasible for some people. So do you just sheer bulk, or do you go by a caloric intake formula? I'll tell you how I do it. I just want to get your opinion on it.
Oh, most of the established protocols for caloric intake are bullshit. Um, I did study with the Mormons a lot, and they talk about 2,500 calories a day. That's not enough. I mean, maybe if for a kid or a petite woman, but you're going to be working, usually in a crisis situation, you're going to be stressed. You're going to be stressed, which causes your body to burn calories like no other. You're going to be physically working. You're going to be putting up windows. You're going to be trying to maybe move to a different location. There's a lot of things that go into that. So there are some guidelines. You can start with the Mormon guidelines, and I would add 1,000 calories plus to that. Um, so what I try to do is teach people to buy in bulk, and you buy in bulk things that will store for a long time, and I mean a long time. Like when I did my video that you saw, and I did that maybe 2 years ago, year and a half, 2 years ago. That video, we opened a bucket of rice that I'd stored in 2011, so it was 10 years old, and cooked it, and we opened it, and the rice was just like the day that we put it in. It was kept in a hot Florida garage, which is a very austere environment for anything. It was also stored at Weatherman's place, in a trailer outside in his yard. So the way the system that we came up with, my partner and I, is a way to store bulk food such as rice, beans of all types, black beans, pinto beans, legumes, peas, all these things that will store for extended periods of time. And the way we have that they're stored, you literally can bury them in the ground, you can put them in an attic, put them in a garage, and you can stack these pails. You can literally have a year's worth of food for probably about half most average two-car garages in America, probably half of one wall of the garage, and about three-quarters of the way up to do that. So I don't have a day-to-day calorie content. I do have some statistics that I could share later on how many calories, how many servings you get from, say, a bucket of rice. It holds about 27 pounds in a 5-gallon bucket. Legumes, and what we call that is your base. So the rest of the world lives on beans and rice or some kind of derivative, or wheat. You can store wheat, you can store flour. Very importantly, you can store salt, which is critical in a crisis. If you ever read Alas Babylon, you know what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Or sugar. You can store pastas, anything that's dried. We put them in an air-free, oxygen-free environment, and we coat them with a substance called food grade diatomaceous earth, and that gives an extra step in coating. So if any kind of tear, any kind of penetration, any kind of oxygen or moisture were introduced to the food, it would prevent larvae or weevils or anything from hatching. Or if you open the food in a crisis, we put them in Mylar bags. We put them with O2 absorbers, food grade diatomaceous earth. We seal them. We let them sit for 24 hours to where that O2 absorbers pulls the bag down tight. And then we use what's called a gamma lid, which are actually very affordable now. 10, 12 years ago, they were pretty expensive, but they're a screw-on lid with a couple gaskets. And that really armor plates your food. So insects, rodents, bugs, water, nothing can really, short of somebody with a ball peen hammer trying to break that, that would penetrate that food. And you can do it for pennies on the dollar. If you go to Costco or BJ's or Sam's Club, join up and you buy 50-pound bags of rice, you buy beans in 20 or 30-pound bags or 10-pound bags, you buy salt. It's very cheap, even in this economy today, to buy bulk food. And you create your bulk food with those substances. And those are the base of any recipes or dishes that you want to have. Would you rather have um, Mountain House Bart's chili with like soy meat and crap in it? You got like 10 different meals that cost, for one person for a year is like 5 grand. It's preposterous. I'm not saying don't have some of those, but have this stuff, then have spices in canned food. You rotate your canned food and you try to keep your canned food in a good environment, or coat it with wax or something, because rusting of the can is your enemy on those. But you can literally take 2 cups of rice in a can of Progresso soup or Campbell's, pour it in there, mix it up. maybe you got a little herb. It's easy to grow herbs and spices and peppers and onions, or you kill a squirrel or you kill a rabbit or whatever. You got a little bit of meat. You could actually make a really healthy, stick to your gut, almost comfort food, nutritious meal instead of eating that freeze dried crap that they sell for tons and tons of money. And it's all marketing machine, is all marketing. Not saying don't have some of that in case you need to leave or you need to go, but you'd want to kill yourself after 6 months of eating freeze dried food.
Yeah, and not to mention the fact that you need to have potable water to make all that stuff happen. And quite frankly, that
Food.
yeah, that freeze dried food is terrible on your. Dude, listen, go camping for a week on the Appalachian Trail and tell me how you feel.
It's good.
Yeah, tell me how your bowels are feeling after eating that stuff. You'll be stopped
right
up like
for a
you've ate a ton of cheese. But yeah, so good stuff. So we talked about. I personally use a caloric formula, and I wrote a blog about it. You guys, if those of you that are watching, if you haven't gone to PeteRobertucci.com, I got a bunch of free mandatory minimums that I've already put up for my mag group. That as far as IFACs, as far as food storage, as far as bug out bags, what you should have in them. And it's free. Just read the blog. It just takes a couple of minutes to read the darn blog. I mean, I don't know how much easier it can get.
If you're trying to do an Excel spreadsheet, figure out how much food you're going to need. My humble opinion is you're doing it wrong. I think you need to store as much food as you possibly can, not just to feed yourself, but to barter, to trade, to use it to help people. I know the prepper guys don't help anybody, but you're going to help people. You're gonna find somebody that has a mutually beneficial skill set or something that you need. You want to be able to barter, so you always want to have as much food as you possibly can. And it's not that expensive. I'm telling you, there's a little bit of elbow grease that goes into it. Hell, if somebody emails me, I'll help you. I'll take you step by step. In fact, Pete, if you post that video I did with Carl from Tactical Rifleman, it walks through it step by step, shows you how to mix it, how to put it together. That's the ticket. That's the way you need to do. And store a bunch of food. It doesn't take up much space in your garage. You can date it. You can put it against the wall. You can store it in a hot garage. You can bury it out back. I mean, if there's a flood, it'll float. It's really kind of armor plating your food.
Yeah,
And
and you're right, and I will post that link in the comments here in a little bit. But I like to, in addition to just bulk storing food, I like to vary my stuff. Like for instance,
totally.
recently I got into. Now look, I understand that people don't have a lot of money. I get that. I've been there. I understand. But look, there's no reason why you can't go buy one get one free of these and store one of these under your bed. No reason why you can't. Buy one get one free. You're gonna have it anyway. That's just beans. And as far as other stuff, yeah, you got the long-term stuff that you would buy from, maybe Agassiz Farms and stuff like that if you absolutely had to. But what I've gotten into,
Sweet treats or meat with those. Don't buy big things of veggies and shit with that because once you open it, you got to use it. Do like the canned meats because meats, protein is the hardest thing to store.
Yeah, and we're gonna get to that. I don't have a jar here. Miss Melissa, my wife, is big into pressure canning, and we specifically pressure can most of our proteins. In 3 to 5 years, shelf stable. But here recently, Donnie, I've gotten into storing some of my. I don't know if you can see that very well, but those are actually freeze dried shrimp that I did here at the house, already cooked. I've tried these. You can throw them in your shrimp cocktail once you rehydrate them. Now, but I don't trust anything with high fat content in the home freeze dryer. You can might be able to see behind me. I know it's kind of blurred out, but I've got the freeze dryer.
Yeah,
But high fat content things for freeze dryers do not work. And people tell me, listen, I can't afford a freeze dryer. It's like $3,000, Donnie. Well, can your group, if you form a group, can you all pitch in a few bucks and buy one? Absolutely, you can. And I like to freeze dry ingredients. We had a bunch of chickens here recently, and we just got rid of them. Can you see that, guys? That's 58 chicken eggs whisked up and freeze dried. You know what I'm saying? So this is good for 20 years.
In nature, the hardest nutritional thing to get is fat.
Yeah.
So really, animal fat is the most potent energy source that you can have, and it's vital to us. And getting fats in nature. Now we run into problems in Florida or South Georgia or Southern Louisiana, Alabama, Texas, out west. Out west is a little better because it's drier, but long term of storing of animal proteins is very difficult. Even if you can, you've got a much more limited time frame than you do, say, if you had a basement house in Tennessee.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. But the fact of the matter is, if you just simply learn to pressure can, you're good for 3 to 5 years with all of your proteins. And if you rotate those, you're money ahead. We bought chicken breasts for 99 cents a pound 3 years ago. Guess what I was eating during mountain readiness? Chicken noodle soup that I had pressure canned 3 years prior. You know what I'm saying? I mean, it's that simple.
I do.
And listen, in our get together, Donnie, I don't know if Angry American or Chris has told you, we're having a get together here on my property in February for our friends. Miss Melissa is going to do a pressure canning class. So if you want, 10, 20.
I can do a class on storing and using the bucket system if you want.
Absolutely. Anything you want to do, it's just going to be a hangout, but anybody that wants to come and teach something, listen, we're all in for that kind of stuff. But look, here's the fact of the matter is, no matter how much money you make, no matter how rich you are or whatever, you can buy a few extra cans a week of beans. That's simple. You can buy a 5-pound bag of rice. And
bags of dried beans.
Yeah, dry. They're going to last you forever. It's just ridiculous to me. So let me pause for a second here and go through. The comments are going crazy right now. Let me back it up and start.
Can't see it.
Hey, baby girl, are you online right now?
Oh, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Have you read any comments you might want to throw out there real quick? That I can't go through the comments as I'm talking. I can't multitask.
Yeah, there's a couple questions.
Let's just shoot those off, and then I'll cycle through and look at the additional comments. Donnie, everybody's warning me about you. I don't understand that. They say I should be very careful that you're going to get me kicked off of YouTube.
You're absolutely right.
You're my kind of guy, then.
General consumption.
So, baby girl, go ahead and shoot with any questions you have. I know I'm breaking protocol here, but that's what we do.
Mom asked, what is your favorite way of storing food?
Donnie Dunn, what's your favorite way of storing food?
That's a great but open-ended question. So my favorite way of storing bulk food. That's all right. My favorite way of storing food for bulk food is using Mylar bags, O2 absorbers, food-grade diatomaceous earth, doing a system for bulk food. Having a freeze dryer is like a superpower. So you have to understand you can only freeze dry so much. I mean, it's a time-consuming, relatively expensive process. You know it is. So I would say if you're freeze drying food, freeze dry high potency, high energy foods, meats, high proteins, and fruits, sugary things that you would want to have. If you're doing like green beans and shit, you're just wasting your time because you can store those in bulk and you can buy cans that do that. And those kind of vegetables are minimal. Unless you're doing a spinach or kale or some higher potency food. So be careful about what you do, but freeze drying. It's not that I say don't buy any pre-made freeze-dried meals. Alpine Air is the best that I've tried. I like it way better than the Wise, and I like it way better than Mountain House. Have a little bit of that in case you need to throw it in a pack and you need to go on a 3-day recce or something that you need to do. And even have a few MREs. MREs are high potency. You won't poop right for 2 weeks, but and the cheddar, the jalapeno cheddar with crackers is my favorite. But have a few of those. But it's $100 and some for 10 of those. You know what you can store bulk food for $110? So don't waste a ton of money on those. Have a few of them if you need to move or if you need to, like say, recce, or you need to go to get a family member. There's some resource that you need. Really concentrate on the bulk food and not just put it in one spot. I know it's not easy for everybody, but find a place to locate a secondary source of food. So I don't care if you are a millionaire with a bunker and you had 25 ex Green Berets. a sizable group can overrun you and burn you out. So mix that up and move it into multiple positions. But my favorite way is bulk food because a beans and rice with a little rabbit or a little squirrel or some beef, or a can of soup in it, so much better. Or even spaghetti sauce or tomatoes, and you can store pasta long term. Would you rather have a bowl of spaghetti than Bart's chili or, you know what I mean, one of
Yeah,
these freeze dried
and
meals?
like you
All
said,
these companies are marketing, dude. They're all marketing, preying upon your fears. That's what they do. I think they're assholes for doing it.
yeah, and like you said before, I mean, people around the world have been living on beans and rice for a long time.
Whole world
So
still do. The
they,
whole world.
yeah, no, they still do. So it looks like let's just Chrissy. I'm just gonna give a shout out to some people in chat. Christy's in chat. Terry, always a pleasure to see you. Guy, I said I saw something that you. Oh, here it is. Hello, Christy, my love. Is there something we need to know? Are we taking this into another level? Touch bases with me offline and tell me what's going on there. Lala's in the house.
Wow.
I know there's a lot going on. Angry Russ. Russ Sawyer's in the house. So
He's not angry.
he says
had
angry.
surgery.
He says angry Russ. Well, maybe he's angry because he had the surgery. I don't
He's
know.
fucking angry.
Will Gomez is in the house. Anybody else is in the house? Listen, put something in chat so I could give you some props here. Miss Tooch, Madman Wayne. Wayne is a madman. Wayne's a part of my mutual assistance group in the Ocala area, and
I like Mad.
yeah, he's a piece of work. I love him, and I always originally when I first met this group, they basically had me coming over there and giving a talk about preparedness and all that, and it was one of those things. It was one of those groups where they didn't show me their bullets right off the bat. What they did was they showed me their food, and I was like, you guys are on the right track. You're on the right track. So I gave them some pointers, and they were so much on the right track that I went ahead and joined them. So props to Madman Wayne. Cars is in the house, giving his twisty bees. Let me read this comment here. I don't like Trump. Yeah, I don't like Trump's attitude either, but like I said, Wayne, he is a man that I enjoy his policies, and I think he was right for America. New record, 14,000.
Looks like DeSantis is dying.
Yeah, DeSantis. Listen, Trump's going to be the front runner. It's just up to the Dems to find a way to stop him. Will says that don't forget China has just targeted U.S. infrastructure with a cyber attack, and nothing has been done because of basically, I'll paraphrase, but I suspect he means nothing's been done because of our weak ass administration. So yeah, they're attacking, they're probing. That's what they're gonna do. Listen, China has the ability to turn down our power grid right now, turn off our power grid right now, and I don't know. Yeah, 100%.
I've got friends and people in the power industry. They're not as babes in the wood as all the preppers would like to make out. They understand these dangers. And I know Tampa Electric. I know a guy who was an engineer for them. And he's like, dude, we've put considerable amount of effort to hardening ourselves. And he's not saying it couldn't happen, but to think that they could just shut our shit down is a stretch, I think.
Well, and I would agree with you until I read the debriefs on the Bin Laden raise, and now I understand that Pakistan doesn't have the cybersecurity as we had, but basically we shut down that entire power grid with a stroke of a key.
Oh yeah, it's fucking Pakistan.
Well, and I get that, and I understand, but I think that what we know is far less than what they actually have, in my opinion.
I think the EMP Commission put a little bit of a light on some of these perceptions that an EMP would just wipe everything out. And they showed that that's not necessarily true. There's a lot of factors on density, power, location that all have something to do with it. In Florida, we'd probably be okay.
Yeah, and absolutely, and that's the research I've done in my books actually will show that. Not so much in this book; it touches on it in book 3, but book 4 it really shows that these EMPs, in my opinion, and the research I've done, are going to be more regionally affected than an entire nation.
I'm saying they won't do damage, but think that if 2 EMPs go off, above in the atmosphere above America, that we're going to be completely dead in the dark, I think is a little bit exaggerated.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I'm more concerned with the cyber attack and the fact that we haven't hardened completely against that, and we have no backup manual systems.
I'm more concerned with my fellow American who's incredibly incapable of doing anything
And look, that's
within 20 days.
and like
The human being.
like I said before, I am blessed where I live. My neighbors are amazing, and I think their heads are on straight. But for the majority of America, your biggest threat's going to be your neighbor. I'm telling you right now.
My neighbors are scared shitless of me, dude.
Well, they need to be, but let me tell you what, Donnie, when they're starving, they're not going to care how scared they are. Now,
I won't be here, so it won't matter.
Exactly.
Listen, I'm going to bug in for 90% of events. If I have to leave and fetch my daughter and family members and go to a boy's house who we know and kit the fuck up and be ready, that's serious heavy shit, Pete. That's post-apocalyptic.
No, it's the real deal. And like I've always preached, you have between 48 and 72 hours to make that decision. Because here's the deal: 72 hours. Why did I say 72 hours? 3 days.
2 hours is
well, and all of your grocery stores throughout the United States have enough stock for 3 days, and then they are out. It's not like the old days where they had a big warehouse in the back.
When that I can't remember the name of the hurricane, but like in 2019, that massive, or 2018, whatever, that massive hurricane was coming up on our side in Florida. I witnessed firsthand grocery stores emptying of all all the bulk goods, canned goods, and whatnot. And then I was fully prepped. I didn't have to do shit. I went and bought some extra propane and another 5-gallon can of gas for my generator. I went to top off my tank. I had like, an eighth of a quarter of a tank less, but I figured, hell with it. People were idiots at the gas pump, and I saw a taste of it. And so much so that guy like almost got his teeth knocked out by me when I saw a taste of it. Well, I saw a taste of it then, and I'm telling you, biggest threat that we have is not ISIS or Al Qaeda, Iran or China. It's our fellow American neighbor, or are soft. They're so soft.
Yeah,
thin veneer.
It's true, and it's like I posted something the other day about real men, and how my wife says they're not making them anymore. And I tend to agree with her. Listen, Cars has a question. Cars is a buddy of ours, my daughter's specifically, and he says, "What should you do as a college student for preparation, especially if your family is not into preparing and stuff like that?" But first, let me say this, Cars, before Donnie dives into this, and I apologize, Donnie, for putting you on the spot here. I know it's not on the agenda, but I want you to read a book, Cars, called Locker 9 from a guy named Franklin.
I was going to say Horton.
Yeah, from Franklin Horton. It involves, first of all, I will admit that Franklin Horton is the best in the post-apocalyptic genre. I don't care what anybody says. He's the best in the business. I love that guy. And me and him have only spoken a few times, so I don't owe him anything. But I will tell you,
told me he didn't like you.
No, I know I believe it. There's not many that do, Donnie. But Locker 9 from Franklin Horton, you can get it on Audible. Read that, and once you read that, believe me, you're going to read the entire series. But Donnie, what should Cars do as a college student, especially if his family is not into prepping?
I have a 16-year-old daughter, definitely going to college. I mean, she's already squared up and do that. Well, number one, I would say if you really love your kid, try to keep them as close as possible. I know that's not always possible. But I think really training, I've taught my kid how to shoot. She knows how to make a fire. She knows how to change a tire. She knows how to use situational awareness, not to put herself in bad positions. She knows a little bit of self-defense. She knows how to shoot like a champ. But really having a plan, making sure your kid's got some tools, a really good home or bug out bag at a minimum. That tools matter, but with training and plan, tools are a critical point. Maps, some kind of way to communicate whether it's Balfungs or some kind of way to do that. Really a plan. Darling, if this goes down, I need you to do this and do this and do this. Go through scenarios with them. Go through scenarios and where they're going to be. Figure out a way that no matter what, you can get to your child. Because listen, in a crisis, it's horrible. It's debilitating, and it's people will panic. Well, if you have just a little bit of a plan. So when I had my business, I told you about earlier, Zombie Survival Products, funny name, but did bug out bags. We did food, did some planning worksheets for people. If you've got a little bit of a plan, and if everything goes to shit and you can't communicate with those you love the most, that plan that you have now becomes the most important. Think about it. The most important thing in the world. I know my daughter's going to be here. If she's not here, she's going to be here. He or whoever. And having that plan is critical. Do that. Because at least if you have a plan, have hope. Hope is what's the most important part of survival? Most important above all else.
Your mind.
Mental aptitude, attitude, all a mental game. The secrets and keys and skills of survival are very simple. They're easily learned and they're easily memorized. The right mindset is key. If you had a daughter at college 200 miles away and the shit hit the fan and all communications were cut off, the roads were jammed up, what would you, I mean, I don't know about you, but I couldn't function not knowing about my loved one and my child. If you have a plan, you have hope, you have the ability to possibly grab that child. That's all I can say because there's no magic bean on that, brother.
Yeah, you're right, and there's not. But and as far as a plan, I always sent my daughter. Well, even in high school, when all the active shooter stuff was going on, I made a plan with baby girl. I said, listen, first I want you to go here if there's an active shooter, or if you can't make it here, I want you to go here. So I knew where to find her. But from the time she was able to carry a backpack, or especially the time she was starting to drive, she had a 3-day pack inside of her inside of her trunk. I say, oh, that's overkill, whatever. Look, I knew.
But did she have the training?
Yeah,
Use that
and that's the
pack?
thing. My baby girl's a badass, Donnie, and we can get her on the range, and she'll do work on us. But
Sure she will.
but yeah, she understood that, and the fact of the matter, listen, we hiked the Appalachian Trail together. We've hiked the Florida Trail together. So it's not just stuff we write down in books. This is stuff we actually live. But a 3-day pack is enough to hold somebody over. Even if you have a 3 days worth of food, if you know where the rally location is going to be, that food's going to last them for 5 days. That'll give me enough time to get to baby girl. And as long as I know where she's
That's
at.
all that matters. That's
Yeah.
all that matters.
Yeah, and there's not enough people in this world to stop me from getting to her. You know what I mean? And the same way with you, I'm sure. There's not an army in the world.
If something happened to my kid, I'd start a Glock, dude. I wouldn't give a shit.
Exactly.
What matters?
Exactly.
Ones we love.
Russ,
Again, it goes back to my statement. Why are you surviving?
yeah, and that's there's a mantra throughout my books, and even this is just the way I live my life. The things I would die for: faith, family, and country, and that's in that order. In that order. Okay, that's not just boilerplate bullshit from the Army, Marines, whatever. That's how I would live my life, and that's what I would give my life for, in that order. So Donnie, not
kid.
Go ahead. What are you saying?
Kid and fuck everything else.
So family. Donnie's like family. That's it. I appreciate that. That's Russ. I'm slumming today. I'm drinking Angel's Envy. I ran out
That's
of.
not
It is.
Who said that?
I'm a whiskey snob.
Angel's
No, I'm a whiskey snob.
whiskey
So,
dude, I'm from Kentucky, bro. Come on.
I know. Hey, Donnie, let's do that Kentucky bourbon trail together. Are you interested in that at all?
Already done it.
I hate you. You've done so.
I grew up in that shit, dude.
Oh.
I mean, literally. I mean, I'm from Louisville, Kentucky, dude. There was the stories, and I love it. If you really want some good booze, man, try Angel's Envy Finished Dry. I know it's a rye, and I love ryes too. Really love ryes and bourbon. Angel's Envy Finished Dry, $100 a bottle, best booze on the planet.
All right. Well, we'll try that this weekend then. Bourbon Trail.
Do it. We should do a stream on bourbon.
What you want to? We'll
I'd love
definitely
to
do
the
that.
trail with you.
Russ, Bourbon Trail, they do it through Kentucky. As a matter of fact, I got a buddy who lives in Tennessee that's not far from that, but you can go through all the distilleries and
Tennessee piss water
and sample all of it. So, yeah, if you want in, Russ, we'll make a thing, and we got a place to stay at Javi's place. Javi, if you're still on, holler at us. You're about to have a whole bunch of people at your property in Tennessee.
I gotta pee.
Go ahead. We'll go to break. Guys, I'm going to go to a commercial since Mr. Donnie Dunn needs to take care of some stuff. This is a little bit of a long commercial. I hope you appreciate it because I enjoyed making it. So, little intermission.
Okay.
I don't think I saw any.
Well, years ago, I used to be part owner of an AR-15 company called Ranger Proof Arms. I was partners with an Army Ranger and also a gunsmith. We built really high-end ARs. And also, part of that, we started a knife division, which I ran and I designed all the knives. May I show one of them? Another one? It's called the Paladin. That's one I'm most proud of because a lot of military guys, Army Rangers use it. It's um, it's kind of a sharpened anvil, a quarter-inch thick. But so we did knives, and we started a division called Ranger Proof Academy, which I ran.
Donnie, let me stop you real quick because I accidentally had myself muted during that. So the question, guys, for Mr. Donnie Dunn was, I didn't realize how similar the paths were with him and myself, but he's also a firearms instructor. And the question to him is what type of training he does in the firearm industry and where he does it. So Donnie, sorry, I apologize. Carry on.
Currently I teach defensive pistol one is a pretty it takes beginner shooters, no matter what their level is. And really what we find is a lot of gun guys, experienced shooters that have never had formal training, benefit from it. So we use a 4-step process to teach people proper drawing the weapon, aiming the weapon, and firing the weapon, and reholstering the weapon. We go through the basics, then we move up to shooting from the side, shooting from the hip, shooting moving targets, shooting targets coming at you. It's called defensive pistol one, but it's actually much more involved. Then by proxy and process, I give people a certificate for their concealed weapons permit, which I still think Florida residents should have for reciprocity, buying a weapon, and whatnot. We also teach a level 2 firearms class. And what we do on level 1 is we make everybody fire from outside the waistband holster with Kydex for safety. Then once we get them and we evaluate them and they graduate 1, then in 2, we now move to inside the waistband holster firing and shooting in what a lot of FUDs, and if you guys know what I'm talking about with a FUD, or NRA disciples might find a little risque, but our classes really teach a more real world oriented type of shooting system that pertains more to what you would actually encounter in the real world, including pieing corners, clearing rooms. So it's a pretty involved class. I teach a shotgun class, which is kind of my specialty. And I also use a co-instructor who's an expert firearms instructor for shotgun. And when I am capable of doing combat carbine 1 and 2 transitional shooting, I usually bring in my friend Don Edwards, former Green Beret from Green Line Tactical. I kind of put those classes together for short barreled rifle, close quarters, carbine 1, carbine 2, and even carbine 3. And Don even teaches night vision classes. He used to work with TNVC. He's probably the preeminent instructor in America, along with a guy named Sam Houston, for teaching that. So we really any level of training you want to do. And of course, I train with Chris Weatherman, who is an absolute. He says he's not an instructor. He's a damn good instructor, and he's a hell of a shot. So any level of shooting you want to do, I can facilitate a class, whether it's for you, a large group, or a private small group.
So something interesting, Guy mentioned in the comments that he's very interested in the shotgun class. So look, February, Guy, if you're down here and if Donnie's willing to do it and he's on the property here, maybe we could set something up like that. It's entirely up to you guys. But look, the February get together for those of you that are tight with the group, with the Eden Army or the Angry Nation, it's an invite only type of thing. I apologize for you guys that are on the outside, but most of the people that are watching right now are either involved with the Angry Nation or Eden Army. So you are more than happy to come out here and spend
Well,
the
if you're
weekend.
involved with Angry Nation, you're involved with me. Weatherman's one of my best friends in the world. I'm deeply
Exactly,
involved with.
and he's done so much for me in the writing aspect of all of this that, like I've told
Can I
these.
just put a note on Chris Weatherman? I don't know how many of you know Chris Weatherman like I do. I know Russ does. You'll never meet kinder, more intelligent, more capable, more versatile, knowledgeable. I'm talking about world history to survival situations. The guy is just amazing. And besides a great writer like Pete is, really, if you do anything involved with Chris himself or the group of people he surrounded himself with, like the Tactical Rifleman group with Sue LaRue, we've got Carl, we've got Emery, which you'll notice from the characters from his book. We have, I feel like, in what I have with Andy Bell from Ranger Proof Arms and also Don Edwards from Green Line Tactical, I feel like we have the best overall group of training, whether it's preparedness training, survival training, food storage training, any kind of combat training you want up to any level that you want. Absolutely 100% recommend that you dive in with the Angry American Nation. I am the minister of propaganda, by the way.
Yeah, apparently, and with I need to recruit you then, Donnie, because we need to get you involved in the or the Eden Army group also.
Gruff.
Which and in all honesty, they're essentially the same damn people, Donnie. To be honest with you, and they're all awesome people. So, Donnie, how if somebody wanted to take a class with you, how could they contact you?
Probably just PM me on Facebook, or if you want to put up my email address, shoot me an email. I'm doing a class for one of my students at my last Defensive Pistol 1 class that I did in December, early December. He wants to bring his office staff in and do a customized class for them. But if you have a particular type of class that you want to put together, myself and Chris Weatherman and our entire group could put together any kind of, whether it's two-man tactics, clearing rooms, sniping, long-range shooting, whatever it is you might want to do in any capacity, I can put that together for you.
That's all. That's awesome. And you guys know my niche in the industry is the Israeli style of shooting and room clearing and stuff like that. And I showed you guys videos last week about how some of the tactics they were using in Gaza. If that's some of the tactics you want to learn, certainly, and you're in Daytona area at all, or Immokalee, Florida, or Virginia.
I would say, Pete, that we're all together.
Yeah, we're all so
do anything, you're going to be involved in it. So it's not like
So like Donnie said, if there's a big class going on, I'll certainly be there, and I may spend a day just teaching you intricacies of the Israeli tactics as opposed to some of the American tactics.
What I do offer too that everybody should do is Stop the Bleed medical classes 1 and 2. I have world class instructors with all the materials and all the devices necessary. Mm-hmm. Really, if you're going to take a firearms class, the next logical step, even before firearms level 2, be to do medical Stop the Bleed classes. I have 2 phenomenal killer instructors. One of them's working with the Green Berets now up at Bragg. So just so you know,
and that's an important thing. And I'm TCCC certified also. So there's many instructors to help you guys. I know that guy at Mountain Readiness. What the hell was his name? Bear Independent, maybe. He put on a hell of a class. I didn't get to sit through it, but everybody that sat through it gave a.
And at the guy with just stuff.
What's that?
Different guy. Oh,
no, it's the only thing when I introduced myself to him, I said, "Hi, my name's Pete." He said, "I'm Bear from the internet." I said, "I don't give a shit about that. What's your name, bro?" And he told me what his name was, but of course I forgot it. But yeah, Bear Independent, nice guy. He apparently puts on an amazing class. But regardless, if you're not at Mountain Readiness, come see us. There's many medics.
Come to you. You got a place to do it. Florida, South Georgia, whatever. I mean, the money's right. We'll go wherever. We can tailor a class to you. I want to emphasize best training you can possibly get at any level. Whether it's me, Pete, Chris, or people that are a lot cooler than all of us put together.
Yeah, exactly. Any training is good training. It doesn't matter. And like I was telling Donnie earlier on pre-production, it was that look, I take a lot of classes. And I take classes where I learn how not to do stuff, and I take classes where I learn, hey, that's a good thing. I need to incorporate that into my classes. So certainly a great thing. Mr. Donnie Dunn, I appreciate seeing your beautiful face. We've been going an hour and a half. That's longer than I normally go.
Wait, oh, okay.
But
I could go all night.
you could,
I
but
could do this all day.
here's a deal. Like all you guys know, we do an after show where I stop the YouTube stream and I stop the Facebook Live, and we strictly go on Kick. So we're gonna do that now, and let's just make that happen. We're gonna have a short intermission. Donnie, if you want to stick around, stick around. If
I
not,
love all you Americans. If you're watching this, you're paying attention because you care. You want to, and the preparedness lifestyle doesn't mean post-apocalyptic. It means prepared for whatever. It could be somebody could lose a job. I had some financial hardships and lived off shit in my garage. It was like the grocery store. I'm like, oh, what's for dinner? Let's see what's in the grocery store, and we go to the canned goods. It's preparedness for how we live. You don't have to be doomsday prepper or anything to make yourself ready. A reasonable, logical, rational way.
that's it. Donnie Dunn gets the last word on YouTube and Facebook. We're going to stop the stream there. And guys, for those of you that are still watching on Kick, we'll be there in about 5 minutes for the after show. Love you guys. Merry Christmas. Donnie Dunn, if you want to stick around, certainly stick around. If you want to bug,
Everyone.
do your thing. But I love you guys, and thanks for being here. Thanks, Donnie.